Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer number 7512-640 louver door gravity pivot, non-hold open, steel-based oil rub bronze finish. This is the bottom portion, what you're seeing here. In the top portion I've got here the jam bracket along with the top pivot, and then of course a package of screws will be included. What this is used for is lightweight doors, about 30-inch wide or less, that are between 7/8 and 1 5/8 thick, that do not exceed 50 pounds, and are cafe-type doors, saloon-type doors, doors of that nature. Okay, they are double-acting, they're non-handed, and they work in installations very similar to what you'd see in a cash wrap. Employee goes behind the counter area to get to the cash register. That half door that's there. Coffee shops have these all the times. Bank teller sort of applications do too, but there's generally locks on those doors in addition to some sort of hardware like this. The 7512 is the part number used to refer to the specifics of this, that it is non-hold open for doors 30-inch up to 50 pounds, from 7/8 to 1 5/8 thickness. Now, the 640 is the oil rub bronze part of the part number. That means two things. That means that this item is both steel-based and it has an oil rubbed finish. Okay? It's specifically non-hold open because when you push the door to about 90 degrees, it'll just come right back closed. This is also available in a hold open version by adding H to the part number, 7512H. Available in several different finishes as well. Oil rub bronze is certainly very common, but as is prime coat, black japanned, zinc coated, satin brass, polished brass, satin chrome, polished chrome, satin bronze. All of these finishes can be made. So now, that is a general sort of. There is a link below this video to the couple of documents. First of all, one called the template, and then the other is called out as the installation instructions. Both of these documents are very similar. You do need to refer to both of them, however, and packaged with your hardware will be everything that you need to get the material installed, to get the doors machined first, and get you on your way. Now, the balance of this video is going to be going through these documents step by step. So what we have here is, and I'm going to compare them, the link to what we call the installation instructions is what comes in the package when you get it. The template is also there, and it gives an incredible amount of data regarding the physical dimensions of the hardware itself. So I'm not going to beleaguer this video with all those points. When you click on template, the entire top third of the page is filled with dimensions of all of the constituent parts. Okay? If you have any questions about that stuff, please feel free to reach out to us. So the remaining 2/3 of the template shows on the left side what is the most common way to install this hardware, meaning that the bottom pivot portion is attached to the bottom of just the bottom of the door. Okay? A less common way of doing it, but still a way that it is done, is shown on the right-hand side of the template, where you notch the bottom of the door so that your door actually hangs down to the point of the hardware or slightly below or wherever you want it to be. Less common, and it's probably less common because when you cut out 2 1/4 inch of the door and then whatever your height is, you're probably going to be getting into a part of the door that wasn't meant to be cut into. So it's unusual to be able to field cut, let's say, 1 1/8 thick louver cafe door. It would certainly, cut through parts that are not meant to come apart, like the stile, the bottom rail. Okay, that stuff's meant to be installed together and stay that way. But if you have your door custom manufactured, that would certainly be an elegant way to do it as well. Although the method on the left side, where the door is just flush or flat to the bottom of the hardware, is obviously the most common way. We'll refer back to the template at some point, going through the installation aspect. Now, let's jump to the installation instructions. So first of all, you'll see in the installation instructions in the upper left-hand corner a parts list. We've kind of already gone through it, but let's do it again. Starting at the top, your top bracket. It's got a nylon bushing in there that it's called. Okay, you've got your top pivot. You have then your bottom pivot, which does come out and it's covered with grease or with oil. So be careful, be aware of that. You've got your cylinder and cam, and that is intended to be removed from the bottom bracket during the installation procedure, so I'm going to do that now. There's a star preparation down here and a square preparation on the bottom of that, but we'll go over that more in a moment. So you've got your cylinder and cam. The cam is inside of there. It's all but impossible to see, but it mates up to the mitered aspect to this collar. Okay, and then of course the nut that holds it on to the bottom bracket. And you know you've got the bottom bracket because it's got the star preparation in it. Now, moving on to step 1. And of course the nut. Moving on to step 1. Fasten bottom bracket to the jamb. Mount bottom bracket only. It can be installed either way, with it pointed up or pointed down. Pointed up is by far the most common way. It's your personal preference. Pointed up is pretty standard. Be sure bottom bracket is in vertical alignment with top bracket. We're going to go over that in a moment when we get to step 3. Step 2, fasten the pivot cylinder into the bottom bracket. Set square drive into the square hole, really the star hole, located in the bottom bracket. Only tighten the nut to a snug fit. Do not over tighten the nut. Why did we remove it? Well, you need to get to these 2 holes when you're attaching this to the jamb. Now, you've got to have, it's all but impossible to see that cam, but it is the opposite cut of this, positive or negative. Okay? You've got to have the high point of the cam at 0 degree to the back side of the bracket. Meaning you could take this and install this in a variety of different ways or in different positions. So be cautious of that because you can actually get it installed where your door is not going to be straight. So with the bottom pivot assembly actually installed in there, you can visually line up where this is going to be in line with or perpendicular to the back of the jamb in that star hole, and you'll be able to just get it down with your hand, then take the nut and, like they said, don't over tighten it. Over tightening it is simply going to damage the hardware. The hardware on the inside of this is not meant to have a wrench put on it and cranked down. It's not necessary. Just hand tight. That piece is never going to move. Okay. Now, step 3. And step 3 is the part where some people need a little bit of assistance. And I'm referring to the 7/8 radius that they're calling out on the pivot side of the door. So what they want you to do is round the jamb edge of the door with a 7/8 radius. Okay. So 7/8 radius, that's 1 3/4 diameter. Well, that makes for a really large roundover bit. It could be that you don't have that. Or the last time I bought a bit of that diameter, it was a couple $100. It could be that you simply don't have the need to have a radius on there, or the desire, or the ability to do that. Now, the problem, though, with not doing it is the one dimension that they don't refer to on the installation instructions, which is called out on the template, is that 5/32 of an inch clearance. okay, between the end of the door and the jamb. So it's basically 1/8 of an inch. If you don't round over the door, you can, depending on the door thickness, you are very likely going to have a problem with the edge of the door burying into the jamb. I have seen these installed where people have padded them out, put a piece of 1/4 inch behind here and bumped it out so that they could accommodate a thicker door, well, a door at the outside of the engineered limit, because the dimension from here to the center line is also directly related to how thick of a door you're going to stick in there. They've padded it out so that they can just use a square edge door. So you're going to have to determine what you do at this point, radius or square edge. You can expect to have to pad it out if you're going to do square edge and you're going to be in 1.5 inch or 1 3/8 door, because at 5/32 is not enough room generally to get that to work. I'd love to hear your feedback and stories on what you've done to get it to work. It'd be nice to have a table that said, if your door thickness is X, what is your margin Y? That would be handy to have. And the reason that it's important to know is, again, because the vertical axis of pivoting is a fixed dimension from the back side of the bracket, okay, the top or bottom bracket. Now, if you're going to round over the door edge, you know, the top row of tile in a bathroom is bull-nosed. Well, if you do that on both sides of the door, it becomes a radius. When I've radiused doors in the past, it is really simple and straightforward. However, I've had to do it so often that I would just have a router and a tool and the justification of volume to actually have the tool on hand. And I would put that door down onto my work surface, make sure it couldn't move, because with these you're generally dealing with a much lighter duty door. And in my case, you're dealing with a 1.5 horse or more router, because you've got a big router bit inside of it. Get that door clamped down, and I would start from the one end and make sure my base was flat on the door. And generally, because I'd be doing 1 3/4 doors that this hardware wouldn't work with, you'd have a very large round over bit to the point where you'd have to modify the router base to fit the tool up into the router itself. Get that put down there and make one pass, and make sure my base did not tip all the way down and exit cleanly off the end of the door, and make just one more pass, no more than 2. That second pass is almost unnecessary, but you might have a little tendency just to flip that router back ever so imperceptibly, and that second and final pass will just be the cleaning operation. You want to make sure that you don't push when you exit off the edge of the door. You don't want the router to come back over to the top or bottom rail of the door. That part is not to be rounded over. So you do that, flip the door over, repeat the process, and you're in great shape. And when I've done this in the past, I would come up with my center line of the thickness of the door and make sure that where my router bit is going to be working is going to be right where, when I flip the door over, it would be exactly in the center of that door thickness. So if your door thickness changes, you're going to have changes in terms of how you set your router bit. But 7/8 is the radius that they're looking for on that, and you'll be able to get up to 1 5/8 door at that point. So if we've passed, well, and then another problem with taking a radius on a door, if you have a veneered door, a door that is a typical commercial flush door, veneer is actually put down to crossbanding or a backer, and that's put down to a crossbanding or a backer. So you could have a 3-ply door skin on the door, then down to the core, which is where 7-ply doors come in. Well, as you radius the edge of that door, you're going to accentuate how wide the different layers are that make up that door skin. That 1/8 of an inch plywood is technically what it is, if you have that sort of door construction. So if you're doing a cherry door, and it's a 7-ply or even a 5-ply architectural 1 3/8 flush door, keep in mind that you are likely to have a problem with the fact that there will be some crossbanding or backer underneath the door veneer. So be aware of that. If you've got solid lumber, you have an 1 1/8 pine cafe door, you're probably in good shape. If it's solid pine, there's probably nothing to worry about. I'm sure the visual inspection will determine if there is, but there'd be nothing to worry about. So step 3, you've got the radius or you don't, and you'll have to sort out if you don't. You're going to fasten the top pivot to the top of the door, and per the installation instructions, it's not really specifically called out, even though it is on the template. You want 1.1/16 from the edge of the door to the center line of this. Now that should be what it would be if you simply flushed the edge of the top pivot off, and it indeed is. When you look at the installation instructions, it basically shows that you're going to flush this off with the edge of the door, and when you do that, you'll have 1.1/16. It's crucial to get that correct. Back to step 1, be sure bottom bracket is in vertical alignment with top bracket. We said we were going to revisit that, meaning the vertical axis of pivoting needs to be utterly plumb. That's why that's crucial. Fasten the top pivot. Again, you've got screws for all of that. You're going to do the same with the bottom pivot. Now, visually inspect where your miter is on the cam. Okay, you don't want to have to undo this and turn it around 180 degrees. Make sure that you're in this position and that you know where you're installing it. Okay. Again, flush it off to the end. Step 4, fasten the top bracket, allowing clearance between the top bracket and the top pivot plate. See what they're calling out there is 3/4 inch. And that's because you need that 3/4 inch right here, because when the door is opened, that plate actually does this. Okay? That's how it works. That's why you've got to have that 3/4 inch there. The next step is just quite frankly step 4. You'll get that fasten the top bracket, allowing that 3/4 inch clearance, and at that point you're going to be in real good shape. To help with door alignment, shims may be used on the bottom bracket to help rotate the door in or out. So if you actually need to tow the door in or out a little bit for whatever reason, that is a recommended solution to the problem. There's a note in the lower left-hand corner. Note, the 7512H with the hold open feature does not require any special installation. The hold open, this applies only if you are interested to know more about the hold open. The hold open feature is on the cam and holds the door when it's pushed to at least 90 degrees. To release the door, push the door in or out, real simple, and it closes. The way that that's accomplished is they'll take this miter and they're going to flatten it off here and on the inside of there, the other cam that's inside of here. So when you rotate it out to 90, it gets to that plateau or that flattened off area and it will just rest there. This will do it because I've got it past 90 degrees, plus there's no weight of the door on top of it. But that's how the hold open, that is the only difference in the hold open feature that's here. Back to the template. Now, all of those points that you see on the, all of those dimensions that you see on the top are important for you to be able to refer to, although you'll probably just take dimensions off the actual hardware itself. Here's what I mean. What they're not giving you is what is the net door height, okay? Based on a typical installation, you know, what does it have to be? How, you know, when I attach this to the frame, top and bottom pivot assembly, what should a net height be? Well, the answer is it's just simply determined by whatever, you know, your location of the bottom bracket and the top bracket will of course be based on the height of the door. So you want to confirm that the height of the door will be compatible with what the ultimate result is for a door height. But if you're doing a, you know, cafe sort of saloon doors, double acting saloon doors, you know, they're typical height. The other concern about pre-fitting the door is you know you'll accomplish 5/32 of an inch on the pivot style, assuming that you've radiused it. The question is, how much gap do you leave at the other end? And again, that's based on, will it be radiused or will it be a square edge sort of preparation? Okay, so you can count on 5/32 as a minimum if you've got it radiused. If you're not going to radius it, you'll have to pad it out again on the pivot side but then you've got to increase the margin on the lock side or the other opposite side, whether it's single or a pair of doors. And that's related to the door thickness. Generally, if you're in the 1/4 inch range, you're going to be fine. Something in that range. If you have, well, but for this, because it's, up to 1 5/8 inch thick door. But you're going to want to do a reality check on those dimensions prior to starting to install. And you'll need to fit all this hardware so that it makes sense before you proceed, is how I do it. Bommer is a comprehensive manufacturer of all things double-acting hinge and pivot related, and their name is really synonymous with it, especially their 3029 series of double-acting spring hinges. The last thing I'd like to point out to you is the Bommer logo, which is all but impossible to see here. Right above it, it says Made in USA. That's a fact that Bommer is quite proud of, as am I to represent them. If you have any questions on 7512-640 double-acting pivot or any other Bommer product, please feel free to reach out to us.